September 1. Quiet day, with the usual inspections and cleaning parades. In the evening, Major and I rode over to take dinner with the CRI. Information had just come through that our outposts are on the top of Kemmel Hill. Apparently the Huns have retreated, but it makes me damn wild to think that we should hold that blood-soaked line and wear down his resistance for other people to follow him up. I would have sold my soul to see the old division go over Kemmel, and if anyone had the right, it was we. September 2. Went into St. Omer with Day and had tea at the club. Succeeded in obtaining some butter at 15 francs per kilo. Verily, the French are a hospitable people. Returned to the mess to find the rumour about Kemmel is confirmed. Apparently the Boche are evacuating forward positions with a view to consolidating their line for the winter. This is all very cheerful and no doubt makes good reading in the clubs at home, but unfortunately it necessitates our return to the line tomorrow. Our rest has therefore been a deal of extra trouble for nothing. 2 days out of the line do one more harm than good. Transport and pontoons started on their return journey tonight, September 3. Entrained at 8:15 a.m. and detrained at rail. Head about 12 noon. Marched forward past our old billets and eventually took over very comfortable billets from a company of American engineers. The line seems to have gone far forward. All the old gun positions are empty, and the sausages are well in front of us now. After all, I think that the ability to park our transport in the open in full view of Kemmel will do us more good than the rest could ever have done. The shadow of that ghastly hill has been over us for so long that our relief at having regained it is out of all proportion to its practical value. The effect on the men has been little short of miraculous, and already they are joking about the possibilities of Christmas at home, or, at the worst, in Berlin. Once more, we look forward to the possibilities of a semi-victory, and the dog-like fatalism which upheld us through the weary summer is gradually changing to something like hope and confidence in the future. But we can never again go forward with the same fiery ardour and implicit faith in the justice of our cause which drove us onwards in the early day. We have seen brave Germans die with faith as great as ours, and knowing their intelligence to be not less, we must at least doubt the validity of our first conclusions. Now we are infinitely wiser men, growing sadder as the cold light of reason destroys our early phantoms of enthusiasm. Already the bones about the way are far too numerous to justify the best of possible results, and there will be more before the end. But these reflections are morbid and unbecoming in a soldier. Or, oh, I must inspect rifles with enthusiasm. September 4. Day and I working all day on our dugout and in making a place where we can have a bath. I shudder when I try to recall my last one. September 5. Up at 2 a.m. and working until 10 with the whole company endeavouring to construct a road across a semi-dry lake. It is obviously a staff project, and would have been condemned by a first-year civil engineering student. We cast our brick upon the waters in the vain hope that it will return after many days. Meanwhile, the advance creeps forward across the swamps in front and shows signs of being bogged as the resistance stiffens. Yesterday, our 2 line brigades had 500 casualties, and after gaining the summit of Messini's Ridge, they had to fall back owing to lack of support. Thus it seems that we shall play the German game once more by following them into the worst of the mud for the winter. God help us if we do. The 19-year-olds would die like flies in a hard winter. Had my bath and feel like a new man. September 6. Dumped a few more tons of brick into the lake. At least it is a peaceful job and keeps the men out of mischief. Played badminton and wrote letters. The war seems to have fallen into abeyance. September 7. Heavy gas. Shelling on the lake this morning robbed us of our constitutional and forced an early return. After dinner we turned out with torches and heavy sticks to hunt rats round the dug. Outs! There were no casualties among the rats, but Day sprained an ankle. September 8. Still brick dumping, although no progress is apparent as yet. During the morning I walked across the dike to talk to the company working in the morass on the far side, and sincerely wished I hadn't. They had been finding bodies all morning, not more than a month dead and just coming to the worst stages. Whilst I was there, they picked up 2 kilted officers. Glorious big men they must have been, but looking so childishly pathetic as they lay there. Unconsciously, we all fell silent, and I saw a D.C.M. sergeant major with tears in his eyes. Hurriedly, I turned away and, walking back to the men, thanked God that people at home can never even imagine the deaths their men are called upon to die. We are going into the war again tomorrow. The rains are with us. September 9. 2 sections moved into forward billets at Negro Farm, an appalling place consisting of 2 stinking dugouts under the ruins of the former homestead. It beggars description, but closely resembles that famous Bairnsfather drawing. We are staying at a farm. It has poured all day, and when we arrived about 11 this morning, there wasn't shelter for a quarter of the men, and none for the horses. I explored 2 or 3 ruins in the neighborhood, but they were all worse than our own midden, so we had to make the best of it. Fortunately, the cheerfulness of the men seems to increase with their misfortunes, and they are now all under cover of some sort. Even the horses are more or less protected from the worst of the weather. My home consists of 3 battered sheets of corrugated iron, a wagon cover, and the back of a hen shed reared miraculously against a bank of earth which is the mainstay of the edifice, light from a candle in a port bottle, no hate, and CE or modern conveniences of any sort. It is cold, damp, miserable, and the headquarters of 2 sections Royal Engineers. Yet you wouldn't offer it to a tramp at home, and a pig would scorn it. Great are the blessings of civilization. I decided to keep 1 section in reserve, so took, free up the line for night work. Arrived very late, as all the tracks were knee-deep in slush, and it was dark as the inside of an infidel. We floundered around for several hours, but it was quite impossible to do anything in the nature of serious work. The line was new to us, and the difficulty of finding the posts was increased by persistent machine gun fire and the most devilish weather imaginable. The ground was in an awful state, and it often took us 20 minutes to move 100 yards. The men swore sublimely, and their humor was the only dryness in the night. Twice we got lost in the woods, and finally I had to give up all hope of finding the lake track. We returned a long way, but even so the tracks were knee-deep, and I could feel the water trickling in over the tops of my field boots. Sometimes it would be such a relief, if only one could cry. The men had a drop of rum when we got back, and it was about 4 when I crawled into my flea bag. A family of beetles played, "Come and sit on my chair" across my toes, and an old brown rat wanted to keep me company. I turned him out 3 times, but the poor devil was so persistent and so pathetic that finally I let him stop. Immediately I fell asleep he came and stroked my hair in gratitude, and I, misunderstanding his intentions, turned him out for good and all. But have you ever tried to sleep in your soaking wet clothes, with your head 2 feet under a sheet of corrugated iron on which it is raining hard? I tried, but the rain and the beetles were against me. I got up, and the morning and the evening were the first day, September 10, still raining, and we spent another awful night in the outpost line. Our own 18-pounders were shooting so short that some of the shells were actually falling behind us, and once we had to lie on the Boche side of the parapet to get cover from them. The weather is our most dangerous foe now, and all wiring, etc., is stopped until we can make some sort of protection for the line troops. They are going down like flies. There isn't a dugout worth the name in the whole sector, and the water, already a foot deep in the best posts, is increasing hourly. September 11. Another terrible night. It is still raining, and we have been soaked through now for 4 days and nights. Most of the companies are down to half strength and trench. Foot is very prevalent. It is as much as most of the men can do to carry 2 sheets of iron per night for their own protection. Our own billets are flooded now, and we are knee-deep in mud everywhere. The horses feel it more than we do, and I have had to send them back. We had to shift their position every 3 or 4 hours to prevent them sinking, and it has been so bitterly cold. There is no protection from this biting wind as it howls and shrieks across the swamps and mud fields. But one thinks of the line, for it is always the line, poor devils, who get it worst. They could tell Dante many things. There are men up there who have not been under a shelter of any description during a week of almost continuous rain. They have forgotten what it is to feel dry, and their minds are dull and stupid with the cold and misery of it all. They have slept fitfully, wakening under the necessity of shifting. They are positioned to avoid the mud, or when an unusually fierce downpour has stung their faces. And during the whole of this time no warm food or drink has passed their lips. Small wonder that they die with gratitude. September 12. It is 2 feet deep on our best main road, and we had a wild fight last night to get the necessary material up for the shelters. An unlucky shell killed 2 men, wounded 3, and knocked out 2 mules. In spite of this, we did a good night's work and erected 14 shelters. The men seem to realize how much depends on them, and I have seldom seen them work so well. September 13. Heavy shelling on roads and tracks disorganized all parties and interfered with work. I was hit in the middle of the back with a large fragment which bruised me badly. If I stumbled and fell once last night, I fell 20 times. We use 3/4 of our strength in fighting through the mud, and the remaining quarter in actual work. We were so tired last night that I tried the short way back again through the woods. Once we stumbled on a colony of rats feeding on the sodden corpse of a Frenchman. I shuddered involuntarily as they scattered away, screaming, and then turned to watch us with beady, malevolent eyes. The last time I was home on leave, I remember my mother asked me why the trench rats were so big. I nearly told her, but then it occurred to me that I might be missing myself and the thought would have driven her mad, so I said it was because of the food we used to throw over the top. God help the mothers who really know these things. Derry croaked up again yesterday and went to hospital. September 14. It is still raining and we are still mudslinging. Would that I had the time to describe it all? My back was very sore today, and I could hardly raise my right arm on account of the smack I received last night. The morale of the men is very low again, but fortunately the weather prevents the Huns from doing anything but shell use. September 15. Signs of the weather improving at last, but mud is very plentiful, and we experience great difficulty in getting about. Artillery and machine guns were very active on both sides last night, and, as we had unusually large parties out, I had a very worrying time. At one time there were 150 men bunched together on the road for nearly an hour on account of brigade giving wrong orders. It was a great relief, and we were able to move them, and no damage had been done. But a mistake like that frequently costs 20 lives, and no one is shot for it. About 2 a.m. I went out in front to reconnoiter a line for wire when I came across 3 dead Boche in a shell hole. One was an enormously fat man, and as I was turning him over to cut off his shoulder numbers, he grunted fiercely like a man awakening from a heavy sleep. For a moment I was horrified, and put my hand on my revolver and waited for perhaps half a minute, undecided what to do. Then I saw the truth. The noise which had startled me was due to the gases of decomposition being forced to his mouth when I turned him over, another of the glories of war. September 16. A really fine day at last, and our spirits rise accordingly. Our hopes are drowning, and we have to clutch at the flimsiest of straws. Last night was very quiet, and a lot of good work was done. The men went back about 4 a.m., and I turned into Battalion HQ for a pow-wow with the Colonel. As I was walking home about half an hour afterwards, the Hun put down a very heavy gas, shell bombardment, particularly around the track. I lay in a hole for half an hour with my mask on, and was frightened to death lest I should be splashed with some of the infernal liquid. The shells were not more than 18-pounders, but some of them were unpleasantly close. This morning division reports that some 3,000 shells came over in the half hour. A new officer joined us today. He is about 30, wears gold-rimmed glasses, and has never seen the war before. He looks around with the wonderment of a little child and will be an infernal nuisance to us. Still, I suppose there are no real men left now.